What if everything we know is only half the truth? What if the most essential part of us, the part that watches, remembers, loves, and dreams, lies forever beyond the reach of microscopes and machines? For centuries, we've explored the outer world with astonishing precision. We've mapped galaxies, split atoms, and charted the movements of light. And yet, the most intimate mystery remains unresolved. What is the soul? The soul is not a belief. It is a question. A presence we feel when everything else is silent. When science looks out at the universe, it sees matter, energy, space, and time. But when we close our eyes, we find something else. A quiet witness, a center of experience. It cannot be seen under a lens or quantified with data, yet it is the most undeniable aspect of our being. It is what persists when thoughts vanish and identities fade. We have called it many things. Ātman, spirit, essence, inner light. From sages in Himalayan caves to philosophers in the West, the soul has been described as the eternal core of who we are. Some say it is divine. Others call it consciousness itself. But no matter the language, the longing is the same. To understand what lives inside us beyond flesh and form. Before we go deeper, pause with this thought. If this video speaks to something within you, something still, quiet, and eternal, support the journey. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share the affirmation in the comments. I am more than my mind, more than my body. In ancient India, the soul was not a metaphor. It was a reality more fundamental than the body or the brain. The sages of the Upanishads spoke not of belief, but of direct perception. They taught that the Ātman, the true self, is not a part of the body nor a product of thought. It is pure awareness, untouched by birth or death. It witnesses the dance of life without being caught in it. Just as the sun shines regardless of the clouds, the soul remains, even as the mind changes. In Vedantic philosophy, the soul is not something you possess. It is what you are. The body may grow old, and the mind may forget, but the soul does not age. It does not sleep. It does not die. It is the silent core behind all experiences, the unchanging reality behind the ever-changing world. The Ātman is described as formless, timeless, beyond the senses, and yet more intimate than thought itself. It is not found by looking out, but by turning inward into the stillness of one's own being. The Bhagavad Gita, one of the central texts of Indian wisdom, says, "Weapons cannot cut it, fire cannot burn it, water cannot wet it, and wind cannot dry it." This is the language of a deeper truth, a truth that cannot be reduced to particles or synapses. According to this view, the soul is not a ghost inside the machine. It is the light by which the machine is seen. It is not trapped within the body. It simply associates with it, much like a dreamer associates with the dream. And yet, the soul is not an escape from the world. In the Indian tradition, it is also a source of action, of dharma, righteous living. When one sees the same soul in all beings, compassion arises naturally. The yogi who perceives the Ātman within themselves begins to recognize it everywhere. In animals, in strangers, in the very structure of life. The knowledge of the soul leads not only to inner peace, but to a profound sense of unity with all existence. This is not an abstract concept. Many who have entered deep meditative states report a moment when all thoughts fall away and only presence remains. A moment where identity dissolves, yet consciousness continues. They say, I am not this thought. I am not this body. I am what is watching. These experiences, though personal, are astonishingly consistent across cultures and ages. It suggests that beneath our individual stories, there may lie a shared substratum of being, a soul not divided, but reflected in each of us. But can this experience be verified? Can something as subtle as the soul be measured or studied? This is where science enters the dialogue. Modern neuroscience attempts to explain consciousness through brain activity. It finds correlations between brain regions and experience, emotion, memory, decision-making. But correlation is not causation. The brain may be the instrument of consciousness, but is it its source? Some scientists now ask if consciousness is fundamental, not a byproduct of biology, but a property of existence itself. The idea, once considered fringe, is gaining traction. If space and time are emergent, as some theories suggest, what then of awareness? Could the soul, or at least some aspect of it, be the ground from which reality arises, not the other way around? Quantum physics, too, has opened strange doors. At the subatomic level, particles seem to behave differently when observed, as if awareness itself changes the outcome. Though this does not prove the existence of the soul, it does challenge the notion that reality is purely objective. It hints at a universe in which the observer is not separate from the observed, a concept strikingly similar to ancient spiritual teachings. Of course, the language differs. Science speaks in formulas. Spirituality speaks in symbols. But both are seeking the same thing, to understand what is. Where science uses experiments, meditation uses introspection. Where science looks outward, mysticism turns inward. Yet both disciplines share a reverence for truth and an acknowledgement that mystery still surrounds us. And perhaps that mystery is not a failure, but a doorway. A reminder that some things are not meant to be dissected, but experienced. The soul may never be captured in a lab, but it might reveal itself in silence, in beauty, in love, in the very moments that make us feel most alive. Moments that cannot be explained, only lived. Moments that whisper, you are not just a machine made of meat and memory. You are something else. Many thinkers throughout history have felt this whisper. Plato spoke of the soul as the immortal essence of the individual, a traveler between worlds of form and the eternal. For him, the soul pre-existed the body and would outlive it, returning to a realm of pure truth. While his language was different from the Vedic seers, the longing was the same: to glimpse the real behind the visible. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychologist, approached the soul from a different path. For Jung, the soul was not a religious dogma, but a living reality within the psyche. He described it as the bridge between the conscious mind and the deeper layers of the unconscious, a feminine principle of depth, mystery, and inner truth. To know the soul, he said, is to confront the unknown within ourselves, not to escape life, but to embrace it more fully, with all its contradictions. Jung's idea of individuation, the process of becoming whole, mirrors the yogic journey of self-realization. Both traditions speak of a descent into shadow and a rise into light, of facing illusions and integrating the forgotten parts of ourselves. And both see the soul not as a passive observer, but as an active force guiding us toward meaning, toward wholeness, toward our true nature. Modern psychology often avoids the term soul. It prefers terms like self, identity, or consciousness. But strip away the terminology, and the yearning remains. The search for purpose. The desire to connect with something larger. The hunger for authenticity in a world of surfaces. These are not merely mental phenomena. They are soul questions. Questions that arise when the noise fades and only the essential remains. In today's world, the soul is easy to forget. We are surrounded by speed, by distraction, by information. Our identities are constantly shaped and reshaped by screens, opinions, and trends. The soul, however, is not concerned with any of this. It waits. It watches. It does not compete or compare. It is not defined by success or failure. It is the quiet center, the eternal presence that sees without judging and lives without needing to be seen. This is why silence is sacred. In silence, the soul begins to speak. Not with words, but with feeling. A sense of knowing. A sense of home. The soul does not shout. It whispers. And if we do not make space to listen, we forget it is there. That is why all true spiritual paths include solitude, stillness, and inner inquiry. Not because they reject the world, but because they help us remember who we are beneath it. Breath is one of the oldest ways to access the soul. When we breathe consciously, we return to the present. When we feel the breath, we remember the body. And when we follow the breath into stillness, we begin to sense what is watching the breath, what is aware, what remains. In this moment of presence, the boundaries between the self and the soul begin to dissolve. What we thought was me becomes more spacious, more silent, more eternal. The great yogis knew this. That is why pranayama, the science of breath, is not just a technique for health, it is a doorway. Each inhalation is a meeting with life. Each exhalation, a surrender. When breath becomes conscious, the soul stirs. Not because it was gone, but because our attention finally turned inward. And attention, like light, reveals what was always there. The journey to the soul is not dramatic. It is subtle. It is not something added, but something uncovered. And often it comes not in moments of achievement, but in moments of surrender, in grief, in love, in awe. These are soul experiences where the rational mind falls silent and something deeper steps forward, something ancient, something timeless, something whole. Many people have glimpsed this in nature, in meditation, in music, a feeling of vastness, of being held by something larger than thought. They say, I felt connected to everything. Or, I disappeared, but I was still there. These are not hallucinations. They are contact with a deeper layer of self, a layer that does not depend on personality or biography, a layer that simply is. But the soul is not only peace. Sometimes it is fire. It burns away illusions. It demands truth. It pulls us toward transformation, even when we resist. This is why spiritual awakening is often uncomfortable. The soul is not interested in comfort. It wants freedom. And freedom means facing what is false, letting go of what is dead, returning to what is real. This is not an easy path. The mind wants control. The ego wants certainty. But the soul wants only one thing: wholeness. To be what it is. To live from the core, not the surface. And when we begin to live from this place, everything changes. Relationships deepen. Purpose clarifies. Suffering becomes meaningful. Life becomes sacred again. And yet, none of this can be proven in a lab. There is no device to measure the presence of soul. But does that make it less real? Love cannot be weighed. Beauty cannot be graphed. Yet we know they exist. In the same way, the soul is not a hypothesis. It is a direct experience. And just as no one can love for you, no one can find your soul for you. You must walk that path alone. And yet, in that solitude, you are never truly alone. Because the soul is not separate. It is the thread that connects all things, the flame that burns in every heart, the silence that underlies every sound. And to awaken to the soul is to see the world anew, not as a collection of objects, but as a living tapestry of being, where every leaf, every face, every breath becomes sacred, not because of belief, but because of recognition. The more we listen to the soul, the less we are swayed by the noise. We begin to live with intention, not impulse. We speak with truth, not performance. We love with presence, not fear. This is the gift of the soul. It brings us home to what we were before the world told us who to be, to what we will remain long after the story ends. But what happens after the end? Is the soul eternal, as the sages claimed? Or is it a dream we tell ourselves to ease the fear of death? These questions have haunted humanity for millennia, and while no one can answer them with certainty, perhaps certainty is not the goal. Perhaps the real question is not whether the soul survives death, but whether it is fully alive now. To live with soul is to live awake. It means walking through the world with open eyes and a quiet mind. It means recognizing the sacred in the ordinary, not escaping life, but meeting it more deeply. The taste of water, the sound of wind, the gaze of another, all become doorways when the soul is present. Not because anything changed on the outside, but because something opened within. The soul, in its essence, is not limited by language, culture, or dogma. It expresses itself uniquely through each person, but its core is universal. This is why people from all parts of the world, across centuries and civilizations, have felt the same inner pull, the same longing for union, the same inner light that does not flicker with external storms. Call it Ātman, call it Ruh, call it spirit, its presence remains unchanged. And yet, each tradition offers a distinct mirror. In Hindu philosophy, the soul, or Ātman, is not just a spark of divinity. It is divinity itself. The Chandogya Upanishad says, Tat Tavam Asi. Thou art that. Meaning, your deepest self is not separate from the infinite. The soul is not a traveler searching for God. It is God, momentarily wearing the mask of time and form. To realize the Ātman is to awaken from the dream of separation. It is to know not merely intellectually, but viscerally, that you are existence itself. This is the heart of Advaita Vedanta, the non-dual teaching that proclaims the oneness of soul and source. The great sage Adi Shankaracharya taught that ignorance, avidya, veils this truth, that we identify with body, name, and thought, and forget the boundless awareness that animates them. The journey of the soul, then, is not a movement through space, but a shedding of illusions, a peeling away of false identities until only the real remains. But knowing this truth is not enough. It must be lived. It must permeate how we speak, how we choose, how we breathe. And that is where the disciplines of yoga, meditation, and devotion come in, not as rules, but as reminders. They point us inward, again and again, until the silence becomes familiar and the soul becomes our center. Western science, for all its brilliance, struggles with the soul. It deals with what can be measured, repeated, and predicted. The soul, by contrast, is subtle. It does not submit to instruments or calculations. It is not a quantity, but a quality, a way of being, a depth of presence, an interior dimension that eludes the scalpel and the scan. This does not make it less real. It simply means we must shift our lens. Some modern scientists have tried. Quantum physicists have hinted at a world stranger than we imagined, where particles exist in potential until observed, and where consciousness may not be an effect of matter, but a foundation of it. These are not spiritual declarations, but cracks in the materialist wall, openings through which deeper questions can flow. And into these openings, the soul enters. What if consciousness is not produced by the brain, but filtered through it? What if, like a radio, the body tunes into a larger field of awareness? Then death would not be the end, but a change in frequency. The soul would not vanish. It would simply shift modes. This view cannot be proven, but it aligns with ancient wisdom and with countless near-death reports, mystical experiences, and inner revelations that defy explanation. Even skeptics feel it. In moments of deep love, profound grief, or sudden insight, when time stops and something timeless touches them. They may not call it soul, but they know something real happened, something that transcends thought, something that leaves them changed. This is the paradox of the soul. It is both intimate and infinite. It is the most personal part of us, and yet it connects us to all. It holds our story, but also our silence. It knows our pain, but also our peace. And it calls us always to remember. To remember that we are not accidents, that we are not just flesh and fear, that beneath the noise there is music, and beneath the music there is silence, and in that silence we are whole. To live from the soul is to live aligned. It is to speak from a deeper place, to choose not what is easy, but what is true, to trust the intuition that whispers in stillness, to honor the inner yes and no, even when the world disagrees. And it is to love, not as possession or performance, but as presence, as recognition, as union beyond the form. In the end, the science of the soul may not be found in formulas, but in lives transformed, in courage born of clarity, in compassion born of connection, in stillness that reveals the truth behind appearances. This is not the science of control, but the science of surrender, of listening, of letting the unknown teach us what the mind cannot. So if you feel the stir within, the longing, the ache, the pull, follow it. Not blindly, but bravely. Ask the questions that matter. Seek the teachers who don't offer answers, but help you find your own. And trust that what you seek is also seeking you. The soul is not far. It is not lost. It is not waiting in the heavens. It is here, now, listening through your ears, seeing through your eyes, breathing through your breath. This is the beginning of a different way of living, not from fear, but from essence, not from habit, but from awareness. And it begins with remembering who you are beneath all stories. If this message resonated with you, take a breath, feel your presence, and write in the comments, "I remember the soul behind my name." subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share it with those who walk the inner path with you. The known and the unknown are not enemies. They are lovers, seeking reunion, and the soul is the bridge between them.